Und manchmal reicht eine Sekunde, sie in einen Albtraum zu verwandeln.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hold my poodle. Hey, yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem?
Let's talk about Maxton Hall again. Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. Today we're going to be doing a very quick review of Maxton Hall Season 2, Episode 3. One reason this review has to be quick is because a lot of the best bits from this episode are on the Do Not Reveal list, so any discussions about that material would have to wait until after the episode is released to the masses. And the other reason why I have to make this review quick is because I have another video to edit for Patreon. It's a reaction to My Lady Jane episode 2. I would have already had that finished on there and published, but I adopted another cat, and she's a rescue from Lebanon, so I had to prepare for her arrival. That's why there was a week in September where there was nothing new published here on YouTube, even though for the most part I usually upload on here every week. I'm still playing catch up, but there we have it, here we go. Before we do some broad feedback on episode 3, I wanted to mention one additional detail that I had planned to include when talking about season 1 in my previous Maxton Hall video, but then I made that in a rush, and I was distracted while working on that project because Netflix finally decided to announce the release dates for Bridgerton Season 4, so naturally I had to address that. An additional detail about one of the things that Maxton Hall does really well is that they have this tendency to keep the camera on Damian and Harriet for long enough that both of them are given the space to perform the full range of emotions, the way they react to one another, or other things that are happening in the story. That's something very specific to the filmmaking medium where the camera will catch everything if you take the time to just hold on the actors, presuming that they're actors that are capable, which clearly both of these two are. But anyway, on to episode 3 now. This is undoubtedly James's best episode. If you watched the show and you somehow weren't already convinced of Damian's acting ability and his range, this episode has to be a game changer. You get more of a deconstruction of James as a character, you get more insight into who he is, how he became the person we see now. It's very much a turning point for the character, what he really wants, and in general, I was impressed. That being said, there was one thing that happened. This was not something that James did or anything that actually has to do directly with him, but it was something that happens with Ruby's episodic storyline that exasperated me. So she has a task she's trying to fulfill in this episode, as is often the case because this is Maxton Hall. The students are very overworked. She's on track towards trying to attend Oxford University after she graduates from here, and something goes wrong. And for me, it just felt like unnecessary extra drama that the episode simply did not need. I talked about this a bit in last week's video about Maxton Hall, but I will reiterate this point because it applies here as well. With Maxton Hall, the style of acting, the emotional tone of the storytelling, and other technical aspects of the filmmaking, this isn't a series that is as melodramatic or over the top as you might see in some of the other international dramas. It comes across as being more naturalistic. It's also only 6 episodes long per season. I don't think you need to overcrowd the season with dramatic conflicts for the story to work and be effective to its audience. If you compare this show to something like La Venganza de Analia, which is a Colombian telenovela with something around 50, 60, 70 something episodes per season, that's a lot of hours you need to fill. So of course they're going to have a giant mountain of dramatic incidents that accumulate across the season. Or any number of dramas from countries all over the world where you'll have this style of music, it's the way that the series is scored, where if something bad happens or you get some sort of reveal in the story, they will hyper-stylize the music to the point that some might call it cheesy. I think it's usually fun, and it lets the audience know, subconsciously, that this is supposed to be a little bit ridiculous, a little bit over the top, because ultimately you as the viewer are supposed to enjoy watching it instead of overly internalizing the on-screen conflict too deeply. But with this Maxton Hall episode, Ruby's already stressed out, and there are multiple dramatic conflicts that are ongoing in the story in general, but also within this episode specifically, and the fact that they just had to add this extra thing of something going wrong, it just felt like one too many accessories. Just take one of them off before you go out. One random tidbit I also didn't mention in my previous review, this is something very subjective and specific to me. I did not realize until I started watching season 2 that Alistair and Elaine are siblings. How is that a thing? Alistair's alright. He's more or less the only tolerable person in James's social circle, and yet somehow Alistair's family's the worst. My condolences to you, Alistair. I didn't realize that they were related because I wasn't looking closely at their surnames. I barely remembered that ensemble of characters' names outside of James's family, Ruby's family, and Ruby's friends. I don't care about James's friends, if you can even call them that. I haven't really talked about Elaine yet, so I might as well do that now. To no one's surprise, I'm not a fan. It's not even because she's the foil. It's perfectly fine to have a foil in a story like this, but the reason I find her character so off-putting is because the very notion of a girl or a woman begging, desperately, trying to get a man, oh, that's simply unforgivable. At that point, it's not merely a matter of disliking the character, it's that I don't respect the character. It's pathetic. I don't care if James is an appealing love interest for the overall story between him and Ruby. He's still a boy, or a man. A man doesn't want you? Fantastic! Enjoy the peace and quiet. Find a book to read. Have a hobby. She has absolutely no other story, no other personality traits, other than the undiluted desperation of wanting a man.
You having an unnatural allegiance to losers.
A small detail I will offer about this episode, episode 3, is something that follows some of the things we've seen in season 1. When the students of Maxton Hall are in their lessons, occasionally they will talk about this or that academic topic, and the writing will intertwine that lesson from the curriculum with whatever narrative is going on with the characters themselves. Well, in episode 3, they make mention of William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream in one of the classroom scenes. So, if you would like something to do to pass the time between now and the season 2 premiere, you can go and read or reread William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream.
No, because I know you're a fan of Shakespeare.
More than a fan. We're involved.
I have my collection of Shakespeare's works over there. I will see if I have time, but right now I am reading a James Connolly reader, and I also want to reread Mary Shelley's Frankenstein before I watch Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, so I might not have time, but nonetheless, the recommendation is there if you'd like to take it. I have my full reading list of this year published on my Patreon, but if you wait until December, I will be sharing most of what I've read this year in a video that I will publish here on YouTube, so feel free to stick around until then. Other positive aspects to this episode? Well, we get to see a bit more of Ember involved in the story. She's often on the periphery, just popping in whenever it's time for Ruby to have her loving family moments, but we get to actually see her as her own person with wants and desires more than we usually do. Thematically, this episode also touches on certain issues that I think are important to encourage more dialogue about. I don't want to say too much because doing so would toe the line of what's on the do not reveal list, but very broadly speaking, if you've seen the movie The Iron Claw or the new Daniel Day-Lewis movie, Anemone, thematically speaking, it's sort of what those films are about. It's a pity that the primary audience of this series is not the audience that most needs to see those types of discussions being had and perhaps learn something from them, but alas, such is the way of the world at this current time. I would say that episode 3 is one of the more standout episodes of this second season, and it could potentially mark a turning point for James as a character. It's too early for me to know for sure because, of course, I and none of you have seen season 3 yet because they haven't made it yet. But if season 3 follows the trajectory of these first 2 seasons and maintains the strengths that have been presented thus far, I think there is a very strong likelihood that once all 3 seasons are out and you have this complete story, you might be able to look back on this specific episode, season 2, episode 3, and regard it as a major turning point for James's character, and by extension, James and Ruby's relationship. So, if you weren't already highly anticipating season 2, you should probably at least up that anticipation for this episode specifically. Now, I know this video is considerably shorter than what I usually post, but again, I cannot say too much yet, and I am staying cautious about the feedback that I share early. We can circle back to the show though in November and talk about the rest of the season. You can let me know if you would like to have a spoiler discussion video of season 2. Believe me, I have a lot of videos on my to-do list, so I have plenty I'm working on either way. But if the viewer interest is there, I'm more than willing to circle back to this series as well. My next video will be a review of Regretting You, since that's releasing in cinemas this weekend, and I already published a video about the source material earlier this year. That is one of many books I've read in 2025, so I will see you then.